All right, welcome to podcast episode number 2 for the Home Service Hustle podcasts. We're still going to be going over questions that people have submitted, kind of like best practices for getting started. So if you do have any questions and you're watching this and you want to submit them, go ahead and either submit it on the live, DM them to me, or comment them below the video. Whatever works. Anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it. First question we have is, do you remove the screens for the clients when you're washing the windows? This is a really interesting one. It's kind of dependent on how I get the customers. If I get them door to door, I'll usually ask them because it's more of an assumed sale, like it's right there, it's impulsive, they decide, and I get to kind of set the rules. So in that situation, I'll go ahead and I'll tell them if you can go ahead and take out the screens. If you want to bring them downstairs, I can go ahead and rinse them off for you before you put them back on after we clean the windows. That way you're not going to be responsible for taking them out or putting them back. This is going to be a very time-consuming part of the job. So if you are getting it door to door, this is going to create a lot more space for you in revenue margins. So that's a huge one. It's also the hardest part to get in and out, the most risk of damaging something. So you're kind of mitigating all those things. You don't have to go in their house. But if I get them from something else like Google, somewhere where I have reviews like Yelp, I will go ahead and I'll just take them out. If I'm doing the inside of the windows, I'll just take them out because I'm already on the inside. It's easier to take them out from the inside. And that way it's kind of giving them a more luxury experience versus when it's door to door, it's impulsive. They want it right now. So that's where they're getting the benefit from. So I kind of wager it off of that, see what is kind of best for the relationship that we have between myself and my company and then the customer. It looks like we have another one that's very similar to this one, and it's going to be, is it better to ladder up to the windows to get the screens out, or is there a best way to get the screens out? This one's super, super easy. Laddering up is never the best way unless you have no other way. If you can go into the house, it's always faster. It's always easier. If you do go inside, that way you can go ahead and you can pop it out from the tabs on the inside. You don't have to break out a ladder. You don't have to haul that thing around all the time. Like I said in the question before this, if you do have a customer that is willing to take them out from the inside, that's always a huge additional help as well. But if you're not using a ladder and you're using DI, it's almost never worth it to break out a ladder just to do that, because then you're defeating the purpose of the value add of using DI, is you don't need a ladder. So things to keep in mind: if you just tell the customer, hey, I need to come inside just to pop out the screens, and you're holding booties, they'll usually just let you in and assume that's a part of the job. It's always about you and how you're going to be framing it with the customer. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't really matter as far as like how it's going to go between you and the customer. It just matters on efficiency and how long the job is going to take you. So you're going to want to just keep that top of mind when you're assessing these jobs and deciding for price. Are you going to want to go inside or stay outside? Things like that. Let's see. Number 2, this is a good one. How do you handle when you damage a customer's property? This one's super, super essential. What you're going to do is you're going to get in your car really fast and drive away because you knocked on their door and you have no other way of getting a hold of you. You're going to basically want to make sure you're maintaining the relationship. So the first thing I do, I had my DI system fall and take a huge chunk out of a customer's wall. What I did in that is I went ahead and I called my handyman right away. I took pictures, I sent it to them so that when I did finally come to the customer and tell them that I already had a solution in mind, I knew they were going to come by within the next 2 days to fix it. They just needed to know if they had the right paint or if he's going to have to match the paint splotch. Made it super easy for the customer. I handled everything from start to finish. I had a I had a solution built out the customer before starting the customer interaction, where I'm telling them, hey, I damaged your property, or hey, my employee broke something or anything like that. I was the one to bring it up to them. They didn't see it. So I got to frame the whole thing, and it was a solutions-based conversation instead of a problem-based conversation that allowed a lot more grace, and the customer didn't even mind. They ended up tipping because it was just so professionally handled. And I think they ended up tipping more than the solution even cost. So it ended up basically being a wash. It's really, really important that you have the end goal in mind, which is you want to make sure that you keep and maintain the customer. And it's going to be a long-term relationship. It's not just for right now. Yes, it sucks and you lose money, and then a lot of times you're working for free, but you are going to want to make sure that you maintain that relationship. So in the long run, you're going to be able to have that customer relationship coming back, leaving you a review. And honestly, a review where they say, this person screwed up my house, but they completely fixed it within 2 days. It was a super seamless process. That's going to be a way better review than just a blank 5-star review that says nothing. And it's going to be certainly better than like having pictures of them saying, look at this damage they did to my house, and they ran away and they didn't fix it. They didn't say anything. So a huge, huge, huge part of this is you need to make sure that you tell the customer and that you have a potential solution in mind, showing that you're on it and you care about them and you're not just trying to get a quick buck. Sometimes you do need to walk it back and reduce some of the price that some of the money that you were going to make from them. So whether that's you're just not going to charge them for the job, or you're going to give them a discount or anything like that, make sure that you cover the solution. That way you're maintaining the relationship for the long run. They're going to stick around for longer, and it's also going to do a lot for you because you're going to be a person of integrity along the way. All right. So this next one is based on how we get customers. It's asking, do you do door-to-door sales, or do you look for customers that have dirty homes that need the services? This one's super, super interesting because most of the time, the dirtiest houses that need the services are not the ones that are going to pay for it. So I do go door to door, and I also get customers through Google, Yelp, anything like that. That's going to be an online system that I don't have to uh, go out and get the customers myself. They're just going to kind of come into me. So we use a lot of SEO techniques. But when I do go door to door, it's usually the cleanest windows that end up hiring us to get the windows cleaned, because they're customers that they clearly value having clean windows. And that's why they're hiring us, is because they know that it's something that needs to be done on a regular basis. That being said, you kind of get customers everywhere. So you want to make sure you have a line in every water. Make sure that when you're doing jobs, that afterwards you knock on the neighbors' doors if you're just getting started. That way you can have one job turn into 2 or 3 for the day. And then also using flyers, having Google reviews, Yelp reviews. You kind of just want to be omnipresent. That way, when someone goes looking, they know that they can find you, or that you can be found. Let's see. A Christmas light question. Is the cost of removing the lights included in the price of installation, or is that different? So for us, we do custom cut Christmas lights. This is super basic stuff. We provide commercial grade lighting. We cut it to match the house. We lease the lights to the homeowner for the Christmas season. We take them down and we store them. So there are lights, so we do not charge anything additional for taking it down. It's really not that great of an idea, even if you're putting up their Christmas lights, to have a second charge, because a lot of times they're going to be disincentivized to hire you to come back, because it's a lot easier to take down the Christmas lights than put them up. Usually you can just pull them down without ever getting on the roof. So there's not necessarily a reason to have you come do it. That being said, some people like to do it a different way. We always want to create the most pleasurable customer experience. So we charge everything up front. We make sure when the house looks spectacular and they're getting the end result that they want, that they're getting the full product at the same time. And that's when they're going to pay. That's when the customer's going to be happiest. And that's when they're going to be the most price elastic. So that's why we kind of come out and hammer everything at the front. And then on the back end, we just let them know, hey, we're going to come back, we're going to take it down. And that's also when we come back with a second sale and upsell and say, hey, did you want any other services done? We can boom, 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 list all of the things you offer, just see if they might be interested. But we do not charge an additional fee to come back and take it down. Since there are lights anyway, we just go ahead and rebook them for the next year. Let's see. Pricing question. So the next one is, I'm worried I don't charge enough. I uh, I'm worried I don't charge enough, and how can I build my confidence? This one's super easy. Confidence on price is going to be based on make sure that you aren't pricing out of your wallet and that you're pricing out of your customer's wallet. If you're working on million or multi-million dollar homes, you got to remember $300, $400, $500 service is going to be a very different thing to them than it is going to be to you as someone who doesn't necessarily have a multi-million dollar home that needs this service done. So make sure you're not thinking, well, I would never pay that much money to have this done. It's would they pay to make sure that their home is maintained and beautiful? They paid millions of dollars to have it there and have a nice view. So they're going to they'll pay marginal amounts of money to make sure that that's maintained. So you got to make sure you're pricing from their wallet, not yours. Additionally, you're going to want to make sure that you're not looking at what you want to make sure that you're looking at the service you're providing, not the amount of time that's taking you. So a lot of times people that are new to the industry, they're used to making 15, 20, $25 an hour. And then they're going and they're doing these jobs and they do a $300 job in an hour or two. And it hurts their brain because you're used to having these services that like you work all day and that's all you make and you just made it in an hour or two. You got to think it's the value you're providing to the customer, not the amount of time spent on the job. So you got to make sure that you have that, the ins and outs of the industry, what competition's charging. You got to know what all goes into it. The more you do it, the more confidence you'll build just naturally. But make sure that you go ahead and you price according to what the market demands, not what you think it's worth because of wherever your background is. You got to make sure you're thinking from their side, is this worthwhile? Is this going to be something I want to invest in? Yes, obviously their home is something they want to invest in. They want to maintain it, make sure it's beautiful. So price from their wallet, not yours. Let's see. Should I charge a premium for commercial work? So commercial work is really interesting because it has a completely different pricing structure. And this is kind of for all services. Sometimes it's lower, like for window cleaning, it's less dollars per pane of glass, but you're going to be doing it far more frequently in most cases. So if we're talking something like a barbershop, a restaurant, a salon, something that is they have a lot of foot traffic and people are coming in and out of their doors and it's all glass, you're usually only going to charge between like $2 and $6 per window pane instead of say 8 to 12. And that's going to be because you're going to do it every 2 to 4 weeks. This is going to be making sure that their business looks beautiful all year round. So when the customers come in, they don't have to worry about, oh, look, it's kind of like unappetizing. You kind of saying like, we're open, it's beautiful, we're ready for you to come in and we want your business instead of it kind of just being a repellent. So they want to have that done on a regular basis with cadence. So that way you're going to charge a little bit less per pane, but you're also kind of getting a volume discount. You're giving a volume discount because you're going to be you can do 12 windows in about the time it takes you to do like 2 or 3 inside like of a house windows. So it's a lot faster despite it being a lot more square footage of glass because you should have bigger squeegees. It's all right next to each other. It's touching the panel to panel to panel. So you're going to go through that and you're going to just kind of knock them all out super quick. It's going to be recurring work no matter what the season is. This is a huge thing you can do during the winter because you can build up your route and it's going to go year round and it will keep going even during the slow season. So you kind of charge less for commercial, but you're going to have something where it's going to be you're charging less dollars per pane, but you're going to be making more per hour. So it's kind of just in the way you want to do it. I will make a full video on this in my school. I guess it would. Yeah, in my Skool community where it's going to go over how you can do all of this. That's going to be completely free when we open it up. So if you want to hop in there and check that out, see how you can get started with your commercial work and just other home services, go ahead and check that out. That'll be really cool once it gets starting. All right. How much of a discount should I give to bundle services? Bundling services is a huge way to increase your revenue, but you got to make sure that you're not giving away too much of the pie when you give a discount for it. Usually I'll give like a 15% or maybe even a 25% discount on the second service. I won't discount the first service usually because they're already bought in on the first service, and then I add the second service at a discount. I've seen a lot of guys, they'll be like, oh, we'll give, yeah, 25% off the whole thing. And then once it's all said and done, you didn't really make a premium for being there. You kind of want to think, how can I make more money while I'm there per hour instead of just how can I make more money, period. So it's kind of, you want to make sure you get the whole thing. It's a win-win situation because you're getting more money while you're there. You never have to move the truck. So you give the customer a discount, and then it's going to be a win for you because now you don't need to go get a second customer to fill up that same amount of revenue. So I think win-win, and how can I get just a little bit better on that end because I'm the one providing the service and taking the risk. It is hard to see with these lights. All right, this one's a great one. This is another one asking for discounts. What kind of discount should I give for recurring work? You should definitely give a discount for recurring work, but you need to be super, super, super careful that you're not giving away more than it's costing you. I've had some guys that I start helping them and I hear about their job and they're like, yeah, we did this one. We gave 40% off to do it 3 times a year instead of 2 times a year. So they're literally the piece of their pie that they're getting is smaller or just about the same, but it's just adding work and adding labor. They added almost no additional revenue, but they added a ton of extra 50% more work. So you got to be careful. Usually, again, 15% is a great amount to just start with. Like it's not going to hurt the whole pie, but it's going to be generous enough for them. I would base the amount you give of a discount based on how frequently they have it done. Sometimes you can do dollar amounts, but usually it works easiest with percentages, and then you can set a percentage and roll with it. If they're bigger jobs, I would probably do a dollar amount instead of a percentage because that way you can seem like you're giving away more of the pie as a discount, but it's going to be less of a percentage. Uh, that's kind of the basics for that. Again, if you want to hop in the Skool group and have all of this stuff broken out with whiteboards, breaking down the numbers start to finish. That way you don't end up just giving away free labor. But this one's super important. Make sure that you get your pricing right on your discounts for recurring service, because recurring service is going to be kind of the holy grail for you on when you're starting to how you get the momentum rolling. All right. How often do you raise prices? So I raise prices annually on just about everyone. This is a tough thing for guys who are just getting started. Usually you don't want to just give away your first, you usually don't want to raise your price when you feel like you're just getting started. You're kind of going to get raises all along. The better and the faster you get at the service, the more money you're going to make per hour, per day. And you're going to want to make sure that once that plateaus, because you've hit like you're sufficient with everything, you're good at everything, you have the best equipment, and you have employees, you're going to want to make sure you raise your prices. That way you can keep paying good wages. So on all of my commercial work, I raise the price in January. They all know it. The price just goes up. Everything's stated, and the month before on their invoice, they get the notice. On customers that get done once a year, sometimes I'll wait 2 years just so that it's not going up every single time. But you want to make sure that it's enough to keep up with inflation. Usually, whatever inflation is, I'll do that plus 1%. That way, you're still getting a little bit extra, you're keeping ahead of it, and you're going to make a lot of money still. Some years that's been crazy. I've had to raise it 11, 12, 13%. But most of the time you're looking at like a 7 or 8% change. So it's going to be like $20 on your average job that it's going to be more the next year. It's not too big of a deal. Most customers don't even notice it. If it's a storefront, something small like a little restaurant, it's going to be like just a couple dollars more every year. You just want to make sure you raise the price so that if you're 3, 4, 5 years down the road and you still have intro prices, that you don't just lose all those customers when you raise the price. You want them to be used to it. And that way you can keep all of your customers for a longer term. All right. How do I learn pole work? Pole work is super, super essential. It's going to be the hardest skill that you're going to have to learn. It's the most technical. Not that any of this is all that hard, but this is going to be the hardest one. And the easiest way to learn it is going to be just go out and get yourself some storefronts and get yourself a pole. Learn to do straight pulling, just pulling straight down, basics. And then once you have that down, have an articulating handle, and you're just going to practice on the storefronts, the higher up windows. You're going to just practice as you go. If you have a big commercial spot that they don't have foot traffic going and it's not kind of by the front door, usually what I'll do is I'll just spend an extra 15, 20 minutes every time I go there. And I would just have my guys practice on those windows while we take care of the rest of the job. That way, you're going to get sufficient over time and you'll get better and better. And you'll have situations in people's homes where you don't want to bring a ladder in. And it's going to be really important that you're going to go and you're not going to pitch a ladder in their house. You're not going to mar up their walls. You're just going to use a ladder or use a pole and you're going to knock those out. It's going to look super professional and you're going to impress your customers. And it makes it easier for you because you don't have to deal with the ladder so much. So that is a super important skill to learn. You're just going to need to kind of learn it over time. It's not going to be the fastest skill that you can learn unless you have high up windows that you can practice on at your house or some of your regular customers. Okay, it looks like we have some questions about like your DI system. What kind of water-fed pole should you get? The unfortunate part of this is it's really hard in a format like this to answer that question. So all of this is answered in my Skool classroom. We have videos going over everything from how to test what market you should be in, like what kind of system, how many stages you want based on your location. Because if you're somewhere where I am, I need a 3-stage system at least, and I need to make sure it's to a certain quality because of how hard the water is. And I know other places like Seattle, for instance, has such a low parts per million of the water total dissolved solids that you're going to want to make sure you have a 1-stage system, because a 3-stage system is just going to be super overkill and just ungodly expensive for the same thing. So you kind of want to make sure you go into that. Again, the Skool class will be completely free when it opens. So it should still be cheap by the time, or free by the time you're watching this. If you want to check that out, it has all of this on what to get, why you should get it, and then everything for different stages. If you can't afford the full system, what I think the best steps are to go into that. But the other part of this question is something I could totally help out with. I lied. I'm not going to address that part. When should you buy a DI system is going to be when you are full on your schedule. Once you have your days are full, you can't take on too much more work and you start booking out another week, 2 weeks, then you want to start looking at buying a DI system. These are going to range from somewhere between $500 to $3,000, and it's going to double or triple your speed for exterior cleaning. You really want to make sure that for this, you're ready for it and you have the cash on hand. But again, check out that Skool classroom. It's going to have everything that you're going to want to see for start to finish, why you should buy certain things and why you should look into them. So that way, you know, if it's a $500 system you need, you probably buy it sooner because it's super cheap. So anyway, something super great to look into. I have long format going into that on the Skool, so you should check that out. It'll all be linked underneath the video. Let's see, what's the next one? What's the best way to increase my lead flow? All right, so your lead flow is going to be super dependent on seasonality, what your marketing looks like. So it's kind of just more primary actions you do, the more lead flow you'll have. So asking for referrals, rebooking customers, reaching out to old customers, making sure that you have referrals, ads, and your online presence is on point. If all of these things are going and you still wish that you had more money coming in the door, you're going to want to start door knocking. I know that's usually what people start with, and that's their first way to get it, but it's the easiest way to get customers in the door today. If you want to make money now, door knocking is going to be the way to do that. If you want a full training on how you can do door knocking, scripts, everything, how to find neighborhoods, check out the Skool program, my Skool community. It's going to have that coming out soon, and it's completely free right now. So you can hop in that, check that out. Super, super, super helpful. I would check that out. Door knocking is one of the hardest skills for anything. It's just sales, but if you can learn that and master it, you can print money whenever you want. Usually when I go door knocking, I make a minimum of $500, and usually I don't even door knock for that long. So if you can just have that on top, any day you have less than $500, you can just knock a neighborhood, get $500 more of work, and then you're set to whatever standard. If you get unsatisfied with that, you want to make a few $1,000s a day, you can reset it to that as well. Just got to get a little bit better, make sure you're in the right neighborhoods. But it's a super great way to increase your lead flow, make sure more customers are coming through the door. Anyway, DI lead flow. All right. How do I handle upset customers? Upset customers is just something that's going to happen. It's completely inevitable. It's just the problem of dealing with a business where you have customers. People just will be upset about the most irrational things. You're kind of just going to want to make sure that you have some sort of customer service theory beforehand. So you're not just being insulting to customers. You want to make sure that you're mitigating the risk of a review. You don't want to be review bombed or get negative reviews, because that your online presence is going to be a huge way that you're going to get customers. So make sure that you do what you can to not get that. So want to make sure you resolve the customer's complaint. You want to make sure they feel heard. So make sure you understand what they're upset about and see if you can do anything to address it. A lot of times this is going to be things like reducing your price, doing a little bit of extra work. You're going to have to go out and talk to them in person. I would not have these conversations over text message or even a phone call, because it's a lot harder to make that full assessment of where they're coming from. If you go in person, they're usually a lot more polite as well. Whereas over text or email, anything else, a lot of people get a lot more of a backbone and they'll say a lot worse things for you. But just make sure you stand up tall, you're super respectful, you shake their hand, and you try and resolve their problem as much as possible, and you're going to move on from there. It's not an ideal situation where there's like a great solution that's one size fits all, but you're going to want to make sure you keep your customers happy. And even if you're not going to work with them anymore, I've had to go as far as to say, I'm sorry, I don't think we can do this. I'm going to pay to have this other company come finish the job for you. And then that way, if they are just a crazy person, they get pawned off to your competition, win-win, and you don't have to deal with them anymore. So just things to keep in mind. You can always get creative and still not have to deal with these people. All right. This is the most absurd question, but I get asked it all the time. I really like, this is the most obvious thing in the world, but how do you clean high up windows? I get asked, how do you clean second story windows? It's absurd that people can't figure this out. Use a ladder. If you're getting started, use a ladder. Use a pole. Do it from the inside. You have a myriad of options. You can walk on the roof line. It doesn't matter, but this is something that's super basic to a lot of people that you don't understand. A ladder is super cheap, 200, 300, $400, and you're going to be able to get every single second story window. There you go. You're done. If you're more advanced and you have a water fed pole system, you just need a water fed pole and the pole, and then you just extend it up, make sure the screen's out. Or depending on the window, this is a hard situation to explain this in, but a lot of times you can lift the sliding window frame up and pull it out from the bottom. And if you're strong enough to hold the vinyl window, you can pull it out and you can do it inside the house, and you can reach out the window and squeegee the outside of the other window and then put it back up. If you're just getting started and you don't have enough money, but you have those customers, that's your level one option. Is you can almost always remove the window pane, clean them from the inside, and clean the other one, put it all back, make sure it's good. But again, 1 or 2 jobs, you should have enough money to buy a ladder, and ladder solves this problem every single time. So go buy a ladder, kids. Okay, this is another awesome question. Gutter cleaning. How do I not make a mess on the floor? you're going to make a mess on the floor. It's inevitable. Things are in the gutter. You're getting out of the gutter. You're going to make a mess. So what I always do is, as long as it's dry, leaves, debris, anything like that, I'll take a leaf blower and we'll blow out the entire thing from start to finish. We just make a mess. That's the plan. And then we get off the roof and we clean it up like we're the gardeners. And we either haul it out or we'll throw it in the trash can, depending on what the arrangement is. But this is going to be the fastest, easiest way to clean the gutters. You can do other things. You can scoop them. You can use a bucket, but you're still going to have spillage. It's just the way it goes. So if you spill mud and it's dirty and you're going to need to use a hose and rinse off the walls, anything like that. It's not that hard of a fix, but you will make a mess. So just make sure that the customer understands this is what's going to happen, but we're going to fix it, and that you understand this is just the process. So don't worry about it too much. Just go on and just get after it, and then just blow it all away afterwards. Super easy. All right. How do I join your group? Super easy. In this video, it'll be linked, but it's going to be my Skool group. Everything's completely free right now, so check it out. Super cool. Let's see. Do you have any other coaching besides the ebook? Yeah, I mean, same thing. You can check out the Skool group. Everything in there is completely free right now, so check it out. Super cool. Door knocking tips. Yes, tons of door knocking tips. You can check out the Skool group. It's going to have a full door knocking section that will be eventually completely built out. I'm kind of going step by step on that. So if you want to get in there, check that out when it's there. That's great. But for now, door knocking, I always suggest you have hours that you are going to definitely work for. So you pre-decide before you go out, I'm going to work today. Say you go out, I'm going to work from 10 until 6 p.m. Just set your hours beforehand, set your breaks, because the hardest thing is when people are rejecting you over and over and over again, it's really easy to talk yourself out of finishing the day. And usually, like right before you get the sale that unlocks the neighborhood is going to be like you're going to be wanting to go sit on the curb, scroll on your phone. But if you just make sure you grind through that, push past it, and work, or just work prime time hours, that's fine too. When everyone's coming home from work, between 3 and 6, that's going to be kind of your best hours of door knocking because everyone's home. You're not going to have as many empty doors. So go ahead and do that. Super easy. Another one that I do is if there's no car in the driveway, I'll usually still go up and I'll knock. I'll knock and ring the doorbell, but I'll just ring it once. And if I don't hear anything inside, I'll just leave. Versus usually I'll stick around and I'll knock a couple times to make sure that the homeowner comes to the door. Those things will save you time, help you out with that. Let's see. So, wow, it's the same. Fastest way to get customers. We already did that one. Awesome. How do I get customers to rebook? Is a really, really important one because getting your customers to come back and having a loyal customer base is how you're going to get good reviews, how you're going to build the business that has some enterprise value so that you're going to be able to sell this later down the road or just have it run like clockwork without you. You're going to make sure you need to do a couple things. You need to make sure that you have a good service, that your end product is desirable and you do a good job. You have a good customer service. Like if you aren't doing the work, you have employees doing the work, make sure that they're super friendly with the customer, chatting them up. Customers want to have that relationship, that connection with you as the company. They don't want you to just be a nameless, faceless company. So make sure you have some kind of relationship built. I always put in my CRM, my notes, pets names. So every time I come back, I remember the pets names. And that goes a long way for the customer of like, oh, wow, they remembered Georgie, our little dog. And it makes you seem like you're closer than you are, despite you only being there for like 4 hours a year. So just make sure you do the little things, and that's going to go a long way. Also, make sure that you ask if you want them to rebook, ask them to rebook. I always ask when I leave a job, when the next time we're going to visit them is. I say, do you want to do in 3 months or do you want to do in 6 months? And then if they say something other than that, I'll put in my notes to follow up with them at a certain time. I also email all of my customers every 3 months, whether or not they have said, oh, I want to wait a year and a half, I want to do it in 2 months. I email them every couple months saying, hey, I just want to check in. Did you want us to come out? Did you want these other services? A lot of times they might not want the same service again, but they'll want a different service done. So make sure that you always are mentioning your other services. It's going to go a long way in creating LTV with those customers. Let's see. Easiest way to keep your customers organized. So this is exactly what I was just talking about is you want to make sure you have some kind of CRM, which is a customer relationship management software, something like that. But this is going to be your database. It's going to have all of your customers in it, everyone start to finish, every customer you've ever done, a log of how much you charge, what their phone number is, what their address is, everything in there. I use House Call Pro. You can also use Jobber, Workis, Service Titan, anything like that. It's going to have a database with all of your customers in it and a way to follow up with them so that you can put them onto a schedule. So you only have one app that's going to have all of your contacts and everything in one central location, and also all the history of all those customers. So if you get a phone call and if you integrate it with your contacts, it's going to come up and have your customer information and their notes so that you can see everything that you've ever done for them. It makes it super, super easy to deal with them and remember everything for the future. And last question on this page is, when should I upgrade my equipment? Upgrading your equipment is going to be super important, and you're going to have to be very intentional about this. If you're going to start with just a Home Depot special with just like $50, you're probably going to want to upgrade that after 1 or 2 jobs. So within the first week of doing this, you're going to need to upgrade to make sure you have high quality equipment, a bucket on a belt in general, so you're not carrying a bucket throughout their house. Make sure you have booties. And then you kind of want to bootstrap it. So make sure if you need to buy a $3,000 water fed system, that if you can't afford the $3,000 system, you wait until you can, or you find a way to finance it. But you're going to want to make sure you're to the point where you have the work that's going to support the investment in the additional equipment. And I would probably start with, if you're going to go from Home Depot special straight to like buying a mid-tier system where you're going to have a belt, a ladder, everything that you're going to need with squeegees, I would go with, instead of upgrading straight to DI, I would branch out and go, how can I add gutter cleaning? Because you can add gutter cleaning for just a couple dollars. That's all super easy. Little decisions are going to make big transfer. So, wow, that made no sense. Little choices are going to make a big impact on your bottom line and the end result of all of this. So make sure that you're intentional about the steps you make. It's all about sequencing. If you want to know my entire opinion on this, I have a full Skool community where we have all of this start to finish. This was the first thing I put on there, was equipment, when to upgrade, and what you should upgrade to and why. And kind of goes for everything, but it just depends on the situation. So that's why it's a kind of a better place to answer that question.
Someone on Instagram asked, do you prefer door knocking or Facebook ads?
For window cleaning, I prefer, okay, I'll just repeat the question for everybody that couldn't hear that. Had someone on the live ask if I prefer door knocking or Facebook ads. I honestly kind of hate Facebook ads for window cleaning. It's a really hard sell because it's hard to get good imagery. So that one's tough. But the great thing about Facebook ads is you can kind of use it for any service and you can pump it into everything. So it's pretty solid to use wherever we are. But door knocking is so easy for me. I've been trained. I've been doing that for 8 years. So I think that's the easiest way to go get money right now, today, tomorrow. But Facebook ads kind of win in the long run because you don't have to be feet on the ground doing the primary actions. You kind of use your dollars to fix that. So hit or miss for me. Right now, I'd probably say I like door knocking a little bit better just because I'm a little bit better at door knocking. But again, if you're better with computers than interacting with humans, then you should crush it on that. I know Spencer kills it with his Facebook ads, and he's not as great at door knocking. So play to your strengths. All right. How much can you make in a day? I mean, it depends on who you are and what stage you're at. I've made 10 grand in a day doing, I think it was gutters and windows. So you can kind of base it on where you're at. It's completely ridiculous to think that not anyone that is watching this could not make $1,000 a day. $1,000 is like three jobs. And if three jobs take 3 hours, you work 9 hours, you make $1,000. It's not too bad. It's pretty easy. So $1,000 should be your baseline. Like I can hit this every day, no problem. Just matters. It just depends on how much and how long you're going to work for. How hard is it to make six figures? This is the easiest thing to do. Home service, one job a day on weekdays. That's it. So if you, whatever it takes you to do to make one job every day, you know, I think you need to do off the top of my head, I think it's like 276 or 270 per day to make six figures. So if you make an average one job a day at $300, you'll be making six figures. And these jobs to make $300 is only going to take you between 1 and 3 hours to complete the work. So it's 1 to 3 hours of manual labor, and then however long it takes you to get that one customer for every day. It's really not that hard if you have other skills like we were just talking about with Facebook or Instagram ads, not door knocking. If you have all of these things working in conjunction, it's really easy to get customers. Probably get right now just from having a good Google presence, probably a dozen people inquiring about quotes per month just from that. That's completely passive, completely free. And I mean, if we close only 25% of that, that's going to be over $1,000 of just free work. And then if we put that into Facebook ads, $1,000 of Facebook ads should be a ton of money. And it all kind of just snowballs. It's not that hard. So just make sure you're kind of omnipresent and just figuring out how you're going to get that one job a day. It's not hard at all. And then how many hours? Oh, this is like the same question. How many hours a week should I work to make $100,000? Again, it's 1 to 3 hours a day of manual labor and however long it takes you to get those customers. So the better you are at asking for referrals, having commercial work, anything else that's going to subsidize the getting of customers and help you get repeat customers or referrals, anything like that. It's all going to help you with elongating the time frame that you're working on. That's backwards. The better it's going to be at shrinking the amount of time that you need to work to make $100,000. If you can get a contract to do a certain amount of businesses, say a chain, and you're going to do $4,000 per month, and you have to do 10 locations once or twice a month. You only need two of those to get a whole year at $100,000, because be two $4,000, $8,000 a month, and you just kind of tootle around and just do those jobs. I had once upon a time given a quote for it's going to be $18,000 a month to do some T-Mobiles where I'm at, and I think they ended up closing for just a little bit less than that. And that the way I broke it down was going to be 2.5 days of work per week, and that was going to be $245,000 a year, something like that. So it's pretty easy. It's just how long is it going to take you to get those customers? If you door knock, I can usually get a customer within 3 hours. I can certainly get a customer within 3 hours every single time. So usually I can get one within an hour, and that would be then 4 hours of work every day on the longest time frame that I would have to work to make $100,000. So it's pretty easy. Just make sure you do the math, kind of figure it out. I think that is all the questions we got here, right? Don't have any other ones on this one. Were there any other questions from the live? All right. Well, thanks for sticking around, guys. Part 2 was fun. If you have any other questions, DM them to me, shoot them over to me, comment in this video, and we'll get it rock and rolling and answer it next time. Thanks, guys.